welcome back to the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel, and this is Season 3, Episode 12, an interview with Professor Titus Underwood. He is my teacher at CCM, and he is also the principal oboist of the Nashville Symphony, and lots of other things. If you're an oboist, you know this guy is everywhere, so I can't wait to share this interview and learn more about what Professor Underwood is doing.
Hello, my name is Titus Underwood. I am principal oboe of the Nashville Symphony. I also am professor at Cincinnati Conservatory College of Music. I also play with the Gateways Music Festival Orchestra, Cincinnati Orchestra, based in London, and I also teach at Aspen Music Festival.
Yes, so you are doing lots of stuff all the time.
Yes.
And those are just the things probably you do like full time.
Yes, and I hope I didn't miss anything.
Yeah,
So
you never know.
Hey, you didn't mention that,
So I know you've mentioned on other podcasts that you got your start in music maybe through like church. Can you go into more details about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in, I would say, Southeast culture. I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, in a very gospel charismatic church. Gospel band. We're jamming. Choir songs. I grew up on Kirk Franklin, Hezekiah Walker, and I mean a lot of people that are in that scene would know who these, Walter Hopkins, who are these people, these like pioneers within gospel music. So I grew up in the church, in a musical family. It wasn't, are you going to do music? It's what instrument are you going to play? I mean, artistry was our life. So, we rap, me and my brothers had a rap group. We created an album, actually, too. I wrote a couple plays. I coordinated for the step team. We did slam poetry. We actually went to nationals with slam poetry, came in fourth nationally when I was in high school. Like, there were a lot of other things artistically that made me, and that was just my culture. So it wasn't, and this is very common for African American culture in the Southeast. So you go to another church and their step team would be there, or you go to the high school and there's a step team there. There's a gospel choir at the high school or at the church. Different churches, different choirs came and sang on different like days. People did church tours of their choirs. So, this is, praise dancing and stuff like that. Poetry, slam poetry was very big in the scene. We go to little small clubs and do poetry, people snapping it up. And so that was just the culture I grew up in. I also played the oboe.
Yeah.
So I had a love for classical music. My parents always wanted me to be exposed to music. So we would go to see the local symphony. Also, my older sister, Naira, my late older sister, Naira, played violin. And she's the one who introduced me to the oboe specifically. And it's like, you should play this. You're nerdy and kind of weird. Play the oboe. So I was like, okay, cool. What is that? And then I heard the sound, second movement of Brahms' Violin Concerto. Fell in love with the sound, and I've been hooked ever since. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start oboe as like a private instrument, or was it through school?
So I started, my parents knew to get me private lessons because they already did that with a lot of my other siblings. They took private lessons for whatever instrument they picked up.
Okay.
I picked it up, the oboe, right away, and I was in public school, which is, I was in a public school program, and then I took private lessons also, like, shortly after. They knew to get me into private lessons. Like, I remember my mom calling around looking for an oboe teacher. My first oboe teacher named Clara Weddle. Shout out to Clara Weddle. Who took me and molded me, and then when I was in 8th grade, I was homeschooled, and also I dual enrolled in college. So I was on the college campus really young, and also doing homeschool work. So I was doing both. So I played in the college band. I also played in the homeschool band. A big part of that was a lady who was a big part of my life, Glenda Jones. She founded the homeschool band, and that really pushed me to higher heights, because then I was doing all state, and I was doing solo and ensemble, all South, tri-state, and all these things. And they're the ones who told me, CIM is a place where John Mack teaches. My teacher already gave me John Mack's CD, his excerpt CD. And then I kind of fell in love with that sound. I was like, I think I sound like that right now. I was like really naive and like hyper confident, because my mom was like, you can do anything.
Yeah.
So, I was like, I need to go to the Cleveland Institute of Music. And I remember because I would go to the website a lot. CIM, and it was the opening website was like the Jupiter theme from the planets. And that was how the website opened. And I would go to that so many times, and that's how I found out about that piece.
Yeah.
Was simply because of going to the CIM website.
There's definitely some psychology behind that choice of music. And
yes, exactly. So I was just like, I gotta get into this school. It was like bigger than life to me. I grew up in Pensacola, so I was like, I have to go there. I didn't even know I was going to like play in a symphony or anything like that. Like that wasn't in my mind. I didn't know that you had to audition for symphonies. I didn't know that they really even existed as full-time jobs at that point.
Yeah.
So at that point, I didn't know that it was like a job. I was just doing it because I was like, okay, I want to be good at this and I'm competitive. That was it. So that's pretty much going from private lessons. So they knew to put me in a private lesson so that I can be in an advantageous position to compete. So yeah, I grew up in.
And then when you got to CIM, what was that transition like of realizing kind of the world that you thought was cool is now like a whole different world to put yourself in?
Right. It wasn't that world wasn't cool. It's just that world, the cool was defined differently.
Yeah.
So, that was the first time, that was the first time I was ever put into a majority white environment permanently. So I grew up black neighborhood, black suburb with people, everyone went to school, is celebrated when you went to college, all that stuff, church and community. And then I was like the only black undergrad with like long dreadlocks. So you know what I'm saying? So it was much different. I was like I remember rolling into the dorm, my windows down, like boom, blasting rap. You know what I'm saying? So like, and then I get out to go to orchestra rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was just different for me. And it was a huge cultural shock. People said weird stuff at first, but when we all got to know each other, like those people became my friends and we became cool. People that were very different from me, just getting to know each other on a human level. My teachers always encouraged me. That's why I always talk. Anytime I talk on any of these podcasts, when people say, "Oh, you're in the environment," blah blah blah. Specifically, my private teachers were always amazing. John Mack, Elaine DeVos, Frank, everybody has been amazing to me. So I've always had them really pour into me and say, you have talent in this. And we really never got into the weeds about culture and stuff like that as far as it pertains to me personally in any lessons.
Yeah.
So like I was there to do oboe. And I knew that was what I was there to do. So anything else that went on outside of that, I didn't bring that into my lessons because I knew I had a limited amount of time. I knew the context of my existence because my family like taught me, I knew Black history very deeply before I got to college. So it wasn't like, when I see like the new movement, people woke and stuff, like I knew about, I was like the radical person who knew about this stuff early. So for me, it was even more kind of weird to be in that environment at first. And I would say there were some things that were ostracizing about it for sure. That never quite left me. But I would say that for the most part, when I was insulated by my friends, I had a great time.
Yeah. When you got to Cleveland, when was your kind of shift towards maybe orchestral playing or to like the really focused kind of, you talk about obsession not being a bad thing and with stuff like that. When did that kind of change for you?
To be an orchestral musician, that started to shift for me second year in the sophomore year.
Okay.
So Drum Mac was a very intuitive teacher. People think, contrary to popular belief, we weren't just sitting there making reads all day.
Yeah.
He taught through music. He taught through philosophy and music. Most of the things, Drum Mac never talked to me about my embouchure or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was always like musical ideas for technical, like music ideas that targets technical issues. And I put that into my own teaching as well. When I get into the weeds, but I also like to talk about music and what you're going for musically, not just like this is what I want you to sound like. This is what I want you to sound like because it gives service to the music. So I remember it was almost the end of my second sophomore year, and I called my brother. One of my brothers, and I was like, I think I want to do like this oboe thing. Like, I think I really want to do it. This is granted, I've been studying drum like almost 2 years, He's like, well, you should just do it then. Like, and I was like, I think, I really want to do this. I think I'm pretty good at it. Like, I feel weird, but I like the music. I remember saying that. This environment, I don't really mess with this culture that much, but I like the way the music makes me feel, and I like the sounds.
Yeah.
So I like participating, making Mozart. Like one of my friends, Alex, and I say I love making Mozart, making Brahms. Like the making of it in real time makes
Hmm.
me feel a certain way. When I have a good read, I can't get rid of that feeling. So
Hmm.
I enjoy doing that with my life, and I like
Yeah.
how it makes other people feel on the other end of hearing that.
Hmm.
So I remember I went back to my lesson the next day, played my lesson, and John Mack would give like these night calls. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? He would check on you and be like, "Hey, my boy, Titus." And I never forget, he was like, "Something changed in you," and I was just like, "What?" He was like, "You really want to do this? You're serious. I saw it in your eyes," and I was just like, "Whoa, that's wow." Because I had a
Yeah.
conversation yesterday with my brother. This guy's a psychic, but that was the type of teacher that he was. Like he
Hmm.
really had bespoke teaching. Everyone was individual. And I remember he told me, "You never know when the light comes on. You stay
Hmm.
persistent, but you never know when the light comes on." And that's when I really decided. When I not only me deciding, talking to one of my siblings, I had come to this point where I wanted to do this, but also seeing that my teacher recognized that in me and also encouraged me to keep going in that direction.
Yeah. And like John Mack as a pedagogue, had worked with enough people that you're obviously trusting his opinion. But when you
Right.
talk about in him being intuitive and like psychic, he's seen that happen and he's seen it like come to fruition for a lot of people.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
What is something you struggled with, maybe not just oboe specifically in your undergrad, but music school related? Because I think a lot of people, when they're young students, look at the professionals and they're like, they must not have had any issue ever.
Right.
So,
Right. I mean, everybody has struggle in this business. It's a very
mhm.
difficult, competitive business. For me, it was hard. I mean, I lost my mother my first semester in college. So that was we were very close, massive
Yeah,
struggle for
I
me.
can't imagine.
Just unbelievable, shift in my life. I mean, even to this day.
Yeah.
So that was a major shift to deal with. My second year, I lost John Mack.
Yeah.
So Jamat passed away. So my mother passed away, the pillar of my life, then my teacher, and then I'm just in a tailspin at that point.
Yeah.
So that was a huge struggle for me. The other thing was like, man, I came from a family that worked hard, and I didn't grow up like struggling, nothing like that. But
Mhm.
like just the wealth gap between me and other students that were there,
Yeah.
like just the social economic difference
Hmm.
of what people had and what I did not have was mind blowing to me.
Hmm.
So that also, you come hang out with us, or let's go to the grocery store, and I'm counting pennies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's a much different situation
Hmm.
from someone who lose their mother, lose their teacher. Also, and I'm not in the economic bracket with the rest of these kids.
Hmm.
That's a much different experience, and I'm ostracized. I felt ostracized many times culturally.
Yeah.
And being an undergrad, one big thing was people ask me like, why are there so many poor black people in Cleveland? I said, well, I want you to go to East Cleveland and ask.
Yeah.
So I don't have the answer to that. But as I got older and I started to read more, I started to understand. I mean, I had an understanding of it at the time, but not
Hmm.
as detailed as I do today, like with
Hmm.
the data they have today and things like that, why it's structured the way that it is. But I'm there studying the oboe, and the majority, especially in a city like Cleveland that has high concentrated poverty, majority of the black people I came in contact with, as far as in the public space, not in the
Yeah.
conservatory or at Cleveland Institute of Art or Case of Western, in the public space were primarily poor people.
Hmm.
So like I'm looking, and that was a very challenging dichotomous situation that I was in.
Hmm.
So it's and people like Cleveland is sketchy and it's scary. I know what that means when people
Hmm.
say that it's sketchy and it's scary and don't go over there. I mean, who's over there?
Yeah.
You have to define who's over there if you're gonna tell me that it's scary.
Yeah.
So it's those type of things were happening,
Hmm.
and that builds you into a certain type of person
Hmm.
and a certain type of awareness that like a lot of people aren't experiencing at that time.
Hmm.
So it's for me, there were more layers to the struggle, but
Hmm.
I always said that I kept the music the center. I kept a piece of myself, a Pensacola, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Kept a piece of myself, my culture, who I am. I
Hmm.
love the music. I love playing all the music that was in front of me. I was on a journey of trying to find myself within that space.
Hmm.
So, and also at the same time, just on the just fundamental musician level, just competing to
Hmm.
try to get a piece of this very small slithers that are in this business. So
Hmm.
it was multi-layered for me. I didn't really have many chips stacked in my favor
Mm-hmm.
coming into the place, but I would say that over time and me getting better, that experience at this time has become like a super strength for me.
Yeah.
So like on the other side is kind of amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the thing that for my stroke in undergrad that I fight for today, I said I
Mm-hmm.
want to hear more boring black stories of Titus went to school and
Mm-hmm.
there were other colleagues there.
Yeah.
He got a great education. He plays in the
No
Chicago Symphony.
struggles. Yeah.
The end. Yeah, exactly. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a very good point. And I think like everyone in undergrad or in your early 20s experiences, you move somewhere maybe and you're seeing a
Yeah.
new experience. And even like you mentioned, like the wealth gap, when I came to
Hmm.
CCM, everyone else in the studio owned an English horn. I'm like, am I
Hmm.
supposed to do that? Or you realize that
Yeah.
like people, it is possible that people are getting ahead because of resources versus
Absolutely.
just talent. And I think when you're, like you said, your mom said you can do anything, it's like we all grow up thinking, oh, nothing's ever gonna, like, unfair is gonna happen to me.
Right.
But we see those things and we overcome them our best, our best
Right.
we
And it's not to judge any kid that
can.
has that, right? That has
Hmm.
that advantage. Like someone who can take lessons from someone in the Met at 13.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way I would
Yeah.
have access to that.
Yeah.
And if that kid's at that event, that's fine. I mean, it's fair game. I'm not. It's not on that person for them to feel bad that they have that. And
Hmm.
that's why I talk about people and their trajectories, especially as a teacher. I say, different people have different trajectories. Oh, this person got that job at 22.
Hmm.
Well, they probably had the best lessons at 9, and you
Yeah.
didn't get them till 18.
Hmm.
There's a massive difference between you and that person. You getting there at 32, 34, 35, you are now contemporaries.
Hmm.
Your colleagues at that point. So it doesn't really matter where that started. We have this weird, obsession over young talent in our business. That
Yeah.
person put the Paganini at 5, and people are going to always be amazed at that. There's always someone who can run faster, you play faster than you, whatever, play more in tune. Doesn't matter. You have to be yourself and be the best version of yourself.
Hmm.
So yes, the economic gap is a real thing that's not necessarily talked about in music that much,
Hmm.
but it's extremely
Huge.
real.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
When you were graduating from your undergrad, did you, I mean, I know the answer, I think, but were you
Hmm.
like, oh, I want to get my master's, I want to continue in education, or did you have something else as your focus?
When I was in undergrad, I just wanted to go to Juilliard really bad. That's what I wanted.
Hmm.
I was like, you know, I read about Elaine DuVos. I was obsessed with her Music Minus One CDs and all the other CDs. I
Hmm.
was obsessed with her sound. I
Hmm.
was like, I got to get in the room with this person. Like, I
Hmm.
got to get information. And she was very intimidating when I met her, I mean,
Hmm.
she's like a mother figure to me now. But, like, it was very intimidating to meet
Yeah.
her. And she's a presence.
Yes.
So for me, and what was really interesting, my first year I studied with Pedro Diaz. He was a huge help to me, gave me a lot of great gems my first year masters at
Hmm.
Juilliard that I didn't start realizing until like later. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't ready for that information.
Yeah.
I was thinking like I need just reads and this and that and the other and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But the lessons that he taught me over the time that I was there, I really learned, and he was a huge advocate for me. So I thank Pedro for that.
Hmm.
One big thing is when I was in undergrad, I just wanted to go to masters. I knew I needed more time.
Hmm.
I knew, but I was willing to put in whatever work I needed to put in. That was it. I was like, whatever I need to do, let's get it done. And that was it. I was like, let's get this done because I really want to succeed in whatever it takes. I'm going to get there. So that was, and I knew it wasn't that I had bias to other schools. Or maybe I
Yeah.
did because I wanted to go to Juilliard, but
Yeah.
like that's what I wanted to do, and that's where I wanted to go. Yeah.
Hmm. You had made the choice, and so it's like,
Yes.
let's do what we got to do.
Absolutely.
Kind of change of question, but if you, let's say, decided you didn't want to do oboe after Cleveland, what do you think you would be doing now? And I know you have other interests, so I'm sure you've thought
I
about
probably would
this.
have been a lawyer.
Okay.
No, I'm keeping it like 100.
Yeah.
I probably would have been a lawyer.
Okay.
Uh, I read a lot about economics and politics and things like that. So
Mhm.
context and history, I'll
Mhm.
probably be some type of lawyer. The only thing
Yeah.
is like I don't know if I can read that much.
Yeah.
Lawyers read a lot, so maybe I would have been trained to do something differently. But I grew up in such a musical family. Is art is just was a part of what I did. It was my
Mm-hmm.
identity. My family
Mm-hmm.
sang together as a family, so
Mm-hmm.
like it was. I was just insulated by music. So I don't know if my mind could have even thought that far, if that was even an option. I
Yeah.
talk to my wife a lot. I mean, she's a doctor, and growing up, I never saw a black doctor. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the first time, yeah, one time when I was in college, I saw one, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, my doctor's black.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe if I saw that more often, maybe
Mm-hmm.
I could have imagined different things,
Mm-hmm.
because it is very common in African American culture for us to be in the arts, music, sports. That I mean, that's a true thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, a lot of us in STEM, but a lot of that started to kind of drop within the 60s, 70s type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing that I think I would have done was go into law, if anything. But at this point in my life, if I thought of doing something, I can't see myself doing anything else different
Yeah.
besides reinventing myself in ways that pertains to music and storytelling.
Has your career focus changed? Like your focus, I'm assuming after master's was really just winning an audition.
Hmm.
And then maybe since that has happened, has your focus changed and broadened?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The short answer. Where do I start? You know, I had a lot of people help me along the way, from John Mack to Frank to Pedro, Elaine, Nathan, and Gabriel was a huge part of my growth. Bob Atho, Joe Robinson, like I had so many cooks in the kitchen that helped me that
Mm-hmm.
were amazing, and also colleagues
Mm-hmm.
that helped me a lot. You know, once I always had a different way that I wanted to express myself in this space,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to check the boxes.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't like, I'm an oboe nerd just like everybody else. I mean, my students know that. I mean, I can talk about reeds forever.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing of it is, as far as my scope of my career, film has been a big thing I've been part of. I'm an advocate in the space.
Mm-hmm.
I've helped co-create programs like the SOPA audition program with Sphinx, where 70 orchestras are part of that, where people have gotten 1 years in an audition competition
Mm-hmm.
for Black and Brown youth. I mean, there's been a lot of things. I've recorded a pilot for a children's show that's being edited right now. So well, took acting classes, all this stuff. I lecture and present on different aesthetics within culture. I taught classes on music that pertains to Black Americans in this country. Like, there's a lot of different spaces that I find myself in besides, and I can do the concerto thing, like doing the Ulysses K concerto at IDRS. I can do the chamber music thing. I did 8 solo recitals this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I wear different clothing. I present differently.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to reinvent the aesthetic. I mean, my film A Tale of Two Tales, like I did that. I got an Emmy for one other thing, that We Are Nashville, a group of other people. Shout out to Bryson Finney and all those people who were part of that. Who he wrote the song for. It was the core part of that. But I came with the idea to bring people together to create it into a video project. So me getting into visual, and it's not just like film, it's how music pertains to visual
Mm-hmm.
and how they intermarry with one another. I don't think people understand the magnitude of where the internet is going. Like, the
Yeah.
internet is truly a new stage. This Zoom thing is not a replacement. It
Mm-hmm.
is a meeting space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people really understand that. It's like, oh, this is a replace. Yeah, for lessons and stuff, it can be, sometimes it can be a little janky. It's not as great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only going to increase and get better. They're
Yeah.
gaining data from people reporting my Zoom crash, or this, that, and other. How was your connection? This, that, and other.
Mm-hmm.
Now has high fidelity music mode, all this stuff. Oboes can sound pretty great with a Yeti mic sitting there. It sounds amazing when I've heard a lot of people play over
Yeah.
it. So the interconnection of people, you're doing a podcast with me over Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the internet is a new stage. Music, and during the pandemic, people were consuming art visually and audibly at the same time because they weren't able to go into a space where they're just actively listening. And that's influenced the way people are going to consume art in an immersive way. So
Mm-hmm.
my thing is that how does art, music, fashion, video, all interlink because
Mm-hmm.
they're all connected. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like they're separate. And I'll give an example. People like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to have lights or anything like that. It needs to be pure. Okay, so it's an opera pure when it was bringing elephants on stage in the early, in the late 1800s at the Met.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I literally saw horses on the stage at the Met.
Yeah.
Full blown, real horses, people riding in. Is that overdone?
Yeah.
Is that distracting you from the music? Or they have costume designers and all this stuff. So opera's pure. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but if I'm talking about symphonic music, you're talking like it exists in a vacuum. It does not. That
Mm-hmm.
stuff was written for a space called
Mm-hmm.
a symphony hall, which is a new construction that was built for composers to write for that space.
Mm-hmm.
There would be new spaces that would be created where composers write for that will go into the 21st century and beyond, where
Yeah.
it will make these things that we've been a part. I'm not saying they're going to cease to exist, or maybe they will. Who knows? Like the gas car may be like some luxury thing that my kids were. Oh, it's cool to like drive a gas car, or even
Yeah.
driving may be a luxury at something that people like to do for leisure because everything's gonna be automated. So the
Yeah.
thing that I'm talking about is moving so fast and
Yeah.
things are growing. So I'm interested in that growth as far as
Mm-hmm.
how that pertains to learning for music because music isn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How someone can learn the oboe in a different way, make reeds in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
or reinvent the way we produce sound. Like there's so many ways
Mm-hmm.
building on what we've all done, not destroying what's there, but building and making it into something that steps into the 21st century. So with that long
You're
answer,
fine.
I see myself in all of these buckets
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things because I'm interested in the future of
Mm-hmm.
music rather than just preservation. Preservation is good, but
Mm-hmm.
innovation is where we need to be going. People are acting like classical music is neutral when it comes to fashion. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Tails is a fashion statement.
Mm-hmm.
Concert Black is a fashion statement. It is a statement. You are making a statement. You're
Mm-hmm.
saying this is what we deem to be professional on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So why can I change that into something completely different?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there is a statement, but it's not neutral in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the fascinating thing about it. It's say, oh yeah, this is tradition, this is standard. The standard is just a bunch of people agreed on something, and you're like, okay, cool, that's
Yeah.
gonna be our norm.
Yeah.
That's just a bunch of people agreeing that that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can bring in something different, say this is where I feel most comfortable performing in,
Mm-hmm.
why can't that be a standard? And I want to challenge everyone, no matter what color you are, what culture you come from, to really think about how can you see yourself personally innovating in this space rather than be another cog in the wheel. Because last time I checked, a lot of people falling asleep in concerts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just saying.
That's so true. My next question would be, could you talk a little bit about the process of getting your job with Nashville in the sense of like what you did to prepare for that and
Yeah.
how long that took from
Mhm.
like maybe your master's to that situation?
Um, yes. So for my master's, I did AD at Coburn. I also did, I don't remember. I was at Rice for a year, and I was also at Lynn for a year. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to 5 different places. In between that, I was on a 2-year one track with Utah Symphony. I had done trial weeks and stuff like that with different orchestras, subbed in a lot of different orchestras,
Mm-hmm.
from the top all the way down the rope, whatever you want to call it. But um, I started getting actually very competitive at auditioning when I was about 24.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in my first final when I was about 24.
Okay.
So I played trial weeks and something wound up working out, and at trial weeks in another place wound up working out, and a bunch of finals in other places. I had 18 finals. Nashville was my 18th final.
Wow.
Um, you know, so and this me coming down to 3 people, 1 person, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
My process for Nashville, I have to say, was different because I was older
Mm-hmm.
and it had been 10 years, well, about 8 years in between, 8 or 9 years in between
Okay.
the first time I won an audition.
Yeah.
So each year I was consistently pounding the pavement,
Mm-hmm.
making finals for different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough for anyone in this business to really grapple onto something that they can call home in their place.
Yeah.
When I was preparing for Nashville, one of my good friends, Julia, who's the principal bassoon of Nashville, we talked a lot about psychology and things like that, and how, because I couldn't go off of this kind of naive, my teacher told me what to do, go in, crush the audition. I had a lot of baggage. I mean, at one point I wanted to quit. I wanted to become a lawyer. I remember I was on trial weeks with an orchestra, and I was calling my friends, saying, I think I'm gonna become a lawyer. And it was a very prominent position. But I was like, I'm kind of fed up with this business. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So for me, a big part of it was I started to really do mental practice, where I say when I step onto the stage of an audition, it is a nostalgic moment.
Yeah.
I've walked in that stage 1,000 times. I've put on those clothes 1,000 times. I walked through that day. The music is so a part of me that I'm tracing it like a line. And then I've done it in 1,000 different shuffled ways, orders of ways. The other thing is that like that space is mine when I get there. And I would I really practice the silence between excerpts, the silence walking on the stage, like what is going on in my mind. Everything was active. There was nothing passive about what I did. The nuts and bolts of course, making reads, recording myself, playing mocks, really proof listening to what I'm doing. I tell people when they record themselves who are scared to record themselves, don't record yourself to just beat yourself up. Like criticism is futile sometimes. You need to sit back and craft the sound.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm the person who's going to craft this sound on the other end of that. So I started to listen to myself in a way to improve myself, not to judge myself. And then on top of that, I started, my playing started to change. I played scales with the drum, like really fundamental stuff. I practiced in a closet, all kinds of weird stuff that I need to do. I always put myself in the worst situation possible whenever I was playing, so that when I was on the stage, it felt like Carnegie.
Yeah.
So it's when I was there, in my mind, I knew I would do well. I mean, as far as playing well, that was in my control. I didn't know what the result would be, but I knew that I was in control of my own playing.
Yeah.
So, I tell people, make a lot, dot all your I's, cross all your T's. I can't stress how much recording yourself helps. Record yourself a ton. Really learn to play in tune. Really learn to play with good rhythm. Really play with sparkling articulation. Make your mind up with every single phrase and every single note in that audition list. I knew the function of every note in every single excerpt. There was nothing passively done. There wasn't any empty space anywhere on that list. So and what that does is, in a high pressure situation, you are in control. Like there's this, I forgot the name of the documentary called Free Climb or something like that. It's about a guy who's free climbs up the side of Boulder, up the side of that really difficult mountain that a lot of people died on.
Yeah.
One thing what's interesting about him making it to the top, like when he got to the top, he was just like, oh, I made it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because he was so in the process. Like, I didn't know they knew the names of every part of the rock for 2 hours.
Yeah.
He's climbing up this thing, and every little turn where his foot's going, his thumb, his first finger, every little detail. Because you can't think about the fall if you're engaged in the journey. So I'm thinking about the journey of Lemaire or the opening of Mozart, beautiful, and traveling through those notes. Every single detail. I'm so engaged that I can't allow a listener on the other side of a screen to crowd or crush my confidence. It's not about them. It's about me presenting. Here's my Mozart, like a painting. Here's the next thing. You present things, and then you walk off the stage with some swag because you know you prepared well. So that was my process for this. Was I was mentally in a different place because I couldn't just go out there and do it, because contrary to most belief, they're like, oh, you were just crushing it. Though that actually makes your confidence low because you window shopping the whole time.
Yeah.
So and when you go to an audition, you leave poorer than when you went there. So I call them the $1,000 epiphanies. Whenever I went there, because they're expensive. So at that time, I just knew I knew I had to be in a mentally different space because I was older. And for people who've been auditioning for a while, it's not the age that wins, it's concepts. And some people are able to deliver their concepts more confidently simply because they don't have as much baggage. But because auditioning is not a young person's game. Audition is just the audition where people show up to present what they prepared.
And that psychology shift can also be how you were able to audition for so many years is because you're, like you said, you're not leaving like broken, you're leaving like confident with how you played. And it doesn't necessarily matter if someone else liked it, because you're like, well, I liked what I did and I'm willing to present myself, like you said, present a painting or something.
Right. Well, sometimes I did leave confident and broken.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I was not. I mean, I'm not like Superman. So, you know, sometimes I did leave pretty down and, you know, trying to reinvent the wheel, freaking out. I need a new shaper tip. Oh my goodness, my oboe doesn't work. You know, all that stuff. So I definitely went down the rabbit hole of those things as well.
Yeah. I feel like in my experience, I'm hearing from a lot of people, like they were about to give up and then they won the audition, you know, and it's almost that you're waiting for to just feel like everything's awful. Or I guess, what is your advice for skipping that huge like bad hole you're about to fall in and then winning something?
When you get good information, learn to adapt quickly. Your stubbornness doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If someone says make more reads, go make more reads. It's that simple.
Yeah.
The information is simple. The discipline is hard. The emotional state is difficult. And no one's here to be, and yes, I understand during this time of COVID and stuff, it was an emotionally taxing thing for lots of people. But at the end of the day, no one's going to fix you but yourself.
Yeah, and like removing the ego out of it.
You have to remove the ego. I knew that one thing I learned from being the youngest of 6 children is that I had to listen to everybody else before I could say anything. So, and I had to prove myself, right?
Yeah.
Which means that I was observing all the mistakes everybody make and all the achievements. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I need to take some of that.
And leave those.
Exactly. Leave those over there.
Yeah.
So one thing I've learned, especially from a lot of students, is egos involved. If something's not working, then that's fine. But someone's giving you consistent information. It's like, you need to play with a drum. Well, I did it sometimes. This has been tried and true for probably 100 years.
Yeah.
So like people playing with pitchforks or whatever, like these things are tried and true methods. No one said that eating greens is bad for you ever.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. No matter how you feel about it. You can eat all the cheese and burgers you want. But the point is, we're going to come back to this very fundamental thing that you have to eat your musical vitamins. Like, so my thing is like, for people, it's not that like everyone's going to get in some sort of funk. And when you get into a funk, it's because you're trying. You get into a funk because you're trying your best. And something's like you're trying to figure it out. And to give comfort to people who listen, confusion is a part of the process. If you're not confused once, you're not working enough. If you didn't come to a word as a stumbling block and you're trying to figure it out, you're not working enough. Or maybe you're too stubborn to do the thing. And usually I want people to really go through all these fundamental things. They're like, well, what do you teach? You know how many scale books out there? A2 books out there? We've exhausted all scale books. Everything is already written. We're in the age where people have everything. You can download something off of IMSLP. Everything is there. But I think a lot of times people think there's some magic pill to things, but there isn't. It's very, very simple. I'll give this quick story. I tell a story of like a person who says there's a wise person at the top of a mountain. And it takes a week to get to the top, and it's brutal. And very few people got there. You're climbing, you get to the top, and you see the person sitting there, and you walk up to them and say, what is the key to life? And the person just says, eat well. And you're like, what are you talking about? That person's understanding of eating well is far deeper than yours. Because they've been practicing it for hundreds of years. Just like playing in tune and playing with good rhythm, it's a different understanding between me and a person who hasn't put in the work. Yeah. The information's the same. The understanding is drastically different. So you have to be in the process just doing it. I remember I asked one of the students, how did you get good at making reads? She said, I just made them all the time. I got the information. I just kept doing it over and over and over again. Then I realized I'm good at making reeds. Ta-da! So that's what I say to people. Funks happen, depression happens, excitement happens. All that is just life. I can't predict what happens, but you can't predict that someone's going to give up. You know, and the thing about giving up, this business has not given people a graceful way to say, I can do something else. There's shame involved in saying, you know what, I'm not playing in the orchestra. Is that giving up? No. Because I probably would have done something related to music. Music is still an integral part of my life. I probably wouldn't have been playing in the symphony orchestra, but who says that that is the marker for success for everyone? It's not. If you want to do that, then we got to get into the weeds. But if you don't want to do that, you have other forms of expression and finding your way. Because you walked away from the symphony orchestra being the principal of a major symphony orchestra doesn't mean you're a failure. Our business needs a better way of giving people grace to have different options.
Yeah, definitely. I think my final question would be to talk about some of your current goals or things like you're excited about that are coming up.
I'm excited to go to Aspen this summer. I'm excited to go to Jamaica with my wife so we have our honeymoon. I'm excited to play the Ulysses K Concerto at IDRS. Yeah. I'm excited to go teach at NYO and teach these super inspiring, amazing kids who play the oboe like professionals already. I'm excited to go to Chineke this summer, playing at the proms. I mean, I'm very, very excited about. I'm excited about the children's program and getting things put together because that's going to be. I'm very excited about that. I would say that's the thing I'm most excited about, and I'm excited to come back and teach next year and meet all the new students that are coming here and keep forming the studio and growing things and building, culture and all that stuff and helping everyone grow and improve. I'm excited about that. So I don't know. I'm very excited about a lot of things, I guess, because I keep a lot of irons in the fire. I'm grateful that you had me on your show. Yeah. I thank you for your questions. And no, just tell everyone to stay motivated, work hard, be excited, go into it with a positive attitude. You never know where life is going to take you, but it's going to take you where you take you. And don't measure yourself next to other people and what they have. And a lot of musicians who have these big egos are actual fragile egos. For people who try to dwarf people, make them feel small based on the position that they have in an arbitrary thing called, the principal chair. So I think at the end of the day, enjoy what you do, love doing music, pursue to be the best of what you can be. Keep your options open because you never know what life is going to give you. But when you're in school, really learn to master your craft the best that you can. Really dig into the weeds and really nerd out on it. And surround yourself, and the last thing I say, and I tell people, surround yourself with people who are not complainers. Yeah. Surround yourself with people who are going to motivate you, who's not going to be an energy suck, who are going to have other people to blame. Be self-reflective. Don't criticize yourself in a negative way, but build yourself and continue to grow that because that's what's going to get you to wherever you need to go. I never knew that I would be an Emmy-winning oboe player, but who knows where this goes. At first I thought I was just gonna be playing in the symphony orchestra and hopefully teaching, but my life is going and now we're at the Black Orchestral Network. My life took 2 years to build. My life has gone in a million different directions, and I'm just here for the ride. And tell people, stay open, be expressive, express yourself, learn your craft so that you'll be able to express yourself even more clearly and better, and just be great. Because I try to tell everyone that everyone can be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a very happy note. I'm really excited to have this conversation with my private teacher brought to my podcast audience. And I know I'm personally inspired to take my musical vitamins and play some long tones today, work on some reeds. So I hope everyone after listening to this is motivated. Feel free to listen to other podcast episodes anywhere you get your podcasts. We also have social media channels that you can contact me. If there's anyone you're really hoping I get on the podcast, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for listening.